Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review. I'm here today to talk to you about The Batman. This came out on Kids WB back in 2004 and it lasted for 5 seasons. This was the most modern iteration of Batman and the third one after that of Batman the Animated Series and Batman Beyond. And then after this series, at some point came Batman Bold and the Brave, or Brave and the Bold, one of those two. And so Warner Brothers, see, back in the Bruce Timm days, the Batman the Animated Series, after that wrapped up, they wanted a younger Batman for a younger audience, so they made him create one. He didn't really want to because of the simple fact he didn't know how to tie that in to his series, because his Batman was never a teenager when he became Batman. He was somewhere in his mid to late 20s. So he did the smart thing by creating his own character by the name of Terry McGinnis in Batman Beyond. The problem with that is that he achieved the goal of creating a young Batman, but not for a younger audience. See, even though Terry McGinnis was in high school, Batman Beyond was extremely dark. In fact, it was darker than that of Batman the Animated Series. And it lasted for 3 seasons. So with him at that point in time, I think he was on Justice League creating that. Or maybe Justice League at some point had came to an end. No, I think Justice League was still around. But I think it was nearing an end at some point because Teen Titans was out. And that's why they couldn't use Robin in this show in the beginning. And so they went back to the drawing board and they got a different showrunner. And then they created The Batman. And The Batman was a younger Bruce Wayne who was in his early 20s. And he had a bit more of an upbeat personality, Bruce Wayne did, in the beginning. This was more in line with Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight trilogy. See, Batman the Animated Series was more based off of Tim Burton's Batman, whereas this one was Nolan's Batman trilogy, because that was the current thing. And then that one also had a younger Batman. So they went back to basics. Now the show is developed by Michael Gokun and Duncan Capzizzi. I don't know how to say their names. Duncan wrote like episodes for season 1 and 4, and it makes sense because that has a more similar tone. And Alan Burnett, who's also known for tons of stuff DC animated, was the writer for season 5, and he was also an executive producer as well. And so that's when you have more of the Justice League type, Brave and the Bold type stuff in season 5. This show was very unique and interesting, and I'm surprised more people do not talk about it. It's actually a really good series. Is it as great as Batman the Animated Series? No. Is it as great as Batman Beyond? No. But it's up there in high ranking. And, you know, I remember this came out when I was in college. And so, like, I remember reading the synopsis. So first they had a picture from Batman Mask of Phantasm talking about they wanted a younger Bruce Wayne. And I was so happy and excited. Then the image of this Batman came out when they finally made it. I'm thinking to myself, man, he has some tiny little pointy ears and stuff and a weird jawline. But other than that, the animation was cool. Now, here's the interesting thing about this series. This series is not perfect, but it is extremely good. The thing that's really interesting and really cool and very eye-pleasing is the animation style. See, the creators went for style, artistic style, over that of substance and storytelling. There are storytellings in here. They do reinvent a lot of the villains and stuff, but for the most part, the art style is the most like amazing thing in this entire series. The use of colors and bold lines, like the way Batman just look, because you know, think about Batman is this. DC has a rule whenever you do animation. They don't care how anybody else in the show looks. You just don't screw with Trinity. Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. That was the rule for the Justice League cartoon series. Now, Batman has always remained the same looking way. Gray shirt and pants, utility belt gold, black like cape, mask, gloves, and boots with blue highlights. That's the traditional look. And whatever symbol you want in the middle. You can change it up. They don't care about the symbol in the middle. But he has to remain the same. Only time this ever changed was in Batman Beyond when they did a more futuristic type thing. And for whatever reason, how they got away with it with Beware the Batman, where he had an all black rubber suit, similar to that of the movies. But other than that, you're not allowed to mess with Batman's design. You can have blue for the cape and mask and gloves and stuff, or you can just make it black. But other than that, you can't change it. And so, other than that, everything else has a very unique look and feel to it. The villains. The villains were completely redone in terms of both how they was created on screen, like their origin, and also their designs. These are some of the most out there designs for the villains. And you know what? I'm digging it and everything. Except for the Joker. I don't know. I think they went overboard with the Joker. I mean, this dude, they went overboard with that guy. But a lot of these reinvented looks for them is really eye-appealing. I love the way the Penguin looks. Riddler is amazing. I can't wait to see a goth Riddler in live action. That would be amazing. Catwoman looks interesting, but I don't like how giant her ears are. They kind of make her look like a mouse. But her whip, she ties in the back and it looks like it's a tail. Mr. Freeze, man, he looks amazing. This version of Mr. Freeze is a metahuman, and he has a very slick, robotic looking suit, and his helmet is no helmet. It's just ice from his powers, that looks like, this crowny looking thing. And it's really cool. However, the bad thing about Mr. Freeze is that he makes puns after puns after puns and stuff like that. Now, one problem with the villains is that they tend to recur over and over and over. But there are times where they introduce C and D list villains and they give them once again, new origins and everything. Firefly is in this, and Firefly looks more like a actual Firefly bug. And because this show has restrictions on what they can show or not, he can't make fire. He just shoots out laser beams and stuff. In fact, Warner Brothers finally got their wish in creating these futuristic fake looking laser pistol guns for the cops and everybody else. There are no traditional looking guns here as opposed to Batman the Animated Series. The way Bruce Timm got around that, he went for more old fashioned looking guns, Tommy guns, pistols, but every once in a while you will see a Beretta and stuff. But here, and the same thing happened in the Spider-Man animated series and X-Men, they weren't allowed to have real guns. So in this series, they have these weird looking, future looking guns and stuff. And so I'm trying to think of another. And then, like I said before, they have a bunch of C and D list villains. They have this one dude who's nanotech who showed up in the third season who messed up Batman's Batmobile. And they even created some of their own, but very rarely did they. Remember Lockup from Batman the Animated Series? They had their own version of this one. Also, we get to see Raph and Scorn. Scorn, I think, is made up, but Raph is from the comics. He looks like Batman. He dresses kind of in an orangish kind of color. And his thing is he hates Batman and he wants to help out the villains. And so it's really cool how they did that and gave him his own partner similar to Robin. And a similar backstory how he lost his parents similar to Bruce and stuff. So they're parallel from one another. So it's kind of wow, if Batman would have went down that darker route, he would have ended up like him and stuff. And so I'm really love the villains, and their reinterpretation of their backstories is very fascinating. In this one, Batman does not create the Joker. He creates Two-Face. Two-Face was just a petty criminal looking for diamonds and stuff, and Batman chased him into this place. He fell in, or something happened. He fell in something, and he got his ice powers and stuff. In this version of the Penguin, this version looks very similar to Danny DeVito's one, but with shorter hair. He has the three fingers. He has the jagged teeth. He knows martial arts for some reason. That's something that's very bizarre with a lot of these villains. A lot of these villains know martial arts and acrobatics, which is kind of bizarre. Seeing Joker and Penguin knowing martial arts is just bizarre. But like, you know, his family used to be rich. They became poor. And then, like, in order to get rich again, he started stealing from people. He also visited Asian countries and got these two kabuki warriors to fight with him and stuff. And they have like these giant razor claws, and they're really interesting. And you never see them with their mask off. And so, like, the Joker is very different. The Joker first appeared in a straitjacket, a green and purple one. And he has these big, jagged, crooked teeth, like these red eyes, a pointy jaw and nose, and like bushy hair. Now, it's debatable if it's long, bushy hair or if it's dreadlocks. They did show what he looked like in his regular human form before he turned into, like, you know, the Joker, and he was just like this white dude. This is interesting because he's voiced by a black dude. That's why I always assumed it was dreads and everything. It does take a good while to get used to the Joker's voice because it's lighthearted, but it's also deep and scary at the same time. And his laugh gets used to as well. But I tell you this right here, right now, the new voice cast sounds the way they're drawn and everything. In this version, Catwoman is just like she is in the comics. She just steals for money and jewels and stuff. And that's how she becomes rich. Now the problem with the storytelling, with, like, say, the villains and stuff, is, like, I'll give you an example of another basic, like, villain. Take Man-Bat. This Man-Bat just became Man-Bat because he likes Batman and he likes bats. There was no tragic accident. Like, his wife cut her hand over the chemicals and stuff. Kurt Langstrom in the Batman animated series did it, you know, out of sheer curiosity, and also because he really enjoyed bats. But, like, he kept going back to it because the beast inside wanted to live, and it started taking over his mind. Here, the beast doesn't take over his mind. The beast is just like, you know, a beast, a mindless beast and everything. It doesn't even have any sentient being to it other than just being like a beastie type animal. And he just becomes Man-Bat for the sake of becoming Man-Bat. There's nothing interesting about it. Like, he just becomes Man-Bat for the sake of being Man-Bat. And that's not fun. You know what I'm saying? It's just, they just took a character from the comics and are like, all right, and did nothing with him, but just another basic, generic, like, you know, plot and everything. And the same thing with the Joker. The Joker just does dumb stuff for the sake of doing it. However, there is one episode that is the greatest episode of them all. Joker wanted to have some fun in season 2, so he started dressing up like Batman. And he started, like, you know, fighting crime, but he fought it way too hard and way too dirty to where he was hurting people. And he would even, like, you know, do the whole gangster thing, like, oh, you want protection? You have to pay me money type thing to, like, the mayor and stuff. And it got to the point where Batman tried to put a stop to him. And it was one of the most interesting and intriguing episodes ever. Like, we've never seen that in any type of animation or live action where Joker just wanted to be Batman for some reason. He was obsessed with Batman. He didn't have a screw loose or a mental breakdown. He just wanted to have fun and be Batman. And this Joker knows monkey kung fu. He does a lot of things with his feet. In fact, he walks around barefooted, and it's very odd and bizarre. But they, like I said before, every villain has like a martial arts background all of a sudden. And so Joker has a new Joker venom, to where it just won't make you laugh and put a grin on your face. It'll kill you. And he infects Batman with that. So Batman has to get like the original formula so he can make an antidote. Well, Penguin, they just put in that episode for whatever reason. and Joker's trying to stop Penguin. And at first, Penguin's all like, he didn't even know that. He's all like, thanks for letting me get away, Joker. But then Joker's whooping on his behind. He don't understand. And here comes laughing Batman trying to stop both of them. And it's really interesting and really intriguing. And the action was amazing. And so Penguin gets bit as well. And Batman is able to get the venom and cure himself. And he cures himself within seconds. And then he whoops on Joker and he tells a joke that causes Joker to laugh so hysterically, he gives up fighting and just like lands on the floor, just like laughing hysterically and stuff. But they never cure Penguin, but Penguin does not die. But that was one of the most interesting episodes ever. And honest to God, if Matt Reeves makes another Batman movie and puts Joker in it, he should do that. That would be one of the coolest things ever. And it would be so different and unique than we've ever seen Joker. This version of Batman is built. He's like 6 foot tall. He has muscles. This man has kind of like these combat boots, and he has talons for gloves, like these pointy claw talons and everything. That was the first time I ever saw that. Bruce Timm later copied that design for his Batman versus Superman Public Enemy set, the second one, the one where Supergirl shows up. And not only that, but he also copied the extremely long cape. This Batman's cape is extremely long. I don't know how that man's able to run and do stuff in it. But one interesting note about this Batman to show that he's younger is that they gave him a pointy rectangular chin in the first 3 seasons. Then in the 4th and 5th season, because of fans complaining, they gave him more of a square-like jaw, like he is in a lot of his incarnations. Personally, the traditional like square jaw, it just looks sharp and nice and clean. But the pointy one I can dig because it's their own style, and that's my problem right there. This this show has an identity crisis. See, this show sometimes doesn't know what it wants to be. And because, they want to do their own thing, but they also have to make it similar to Nolan's stuff. But then the fans are complaining because it doesn't look like Batman the animated series. And that was one of the biggest problems when this show was around, is that like fans complain so much, too much, in fact. They complained so much that so much stuff started getting changed around in this show, like the intro and stuff. The intro in the either the first 2 seasons or the first 3, it had a more dark, majestic, eerie, noir kind of way, similar to Nolan's music, and even stuff similar, well, actually more like Nolan. You can tell this was a completely different series. Then when the sidekicks start coming in, it went for a more upbeat Adam West type vibe. Both are good, but I prefer the first one because it's more eerie and everything. And it's strange how it went to this upbeat type music. It sounds great, but it's just weird and don't fit in, especially with this tone because it used to be so much darker. And even like I said, Batman himself, when he's Bruce Wayne, he's very upbeat. You can tell this is a 20-year-old man. He's in the Batcave listening to music, which is kind of weird and bizarre. So in a way, this Batman is more happier than the grim, dark Batman we all know and love. But when you get around to the 3rd and 4th and 5th season, then he becomes more of that traditional Batman the animated series style. He is more grim and moody, and he's meaner and stuff. And not only that, but like by the 5th season, he started smiling constantly, which was weird and bizarre. So it's like this show never really truly knew what it wanted to be and everything, and they constantly kept changing things around. One of the things that bugged me that they kept changing around was the sky. The sky kept changing different colors at night. Bruce Timm had a very basic scheme. In the original series, he had a blue sky and dark black looking skies. But then when he went to the New Adventures, he went for like a red blood like night sky. When Batman Beyond came around, he went for a purple sky and at night and orange during the day. Here, the sky changes every color at night. It's purple, it's green, it's a little blue, it's a little red. They could not make up their mind, and it drove me nuts and everything. And so then later on, in the third season, they decided to bring in Commissioner Gordon and Batgirl Barbara Gordon. The reason why they brought her in first as the sidekick is because Robin was tied up in the Titans show and was not allowed to come over. So they reinterpret her character, making her a teenager, a gymnastics person, and best friends with Poison Ivy before Poison Ivy became Poison Ivy. Poison Ivy in this version was a teenager. And this version of Barbara is very annoying. I like the voice actress, but she's super annoying and everything. She's constantly making jokes and one-liners, and she has a very unique way she answers the phone. Basically, if she answers the phone, she'll like Bob and Pete's pizza burrito or something like that, or like, you know, PetSmart, how you doing? Like, she always says something like that, like she's always a store. I don't know why she does that. It's never explained why she does it. She just does it, and it gets on everybody's nerves on the show, and it gets on my nerves as well. So they try to make her into that campy, annoying Dick Grayson type Robin that everybody knew from like the older days and everything. Now, when she comes in, she just straight up want to be like Batgirl when stuff starts going bad, and Bruce does not want her to be Batgirl. But he constantly lets her tag along, but he's always trying to get away from her. And then, so she's always, the thing that I do like about her, she's trying to prove herself to him, always by helping out and also saving him, but he's always giving her the cold shoulder and just leaving her out to dry. She has to get into the Batbot, which is kind of like this exosuit, to take on the Joker, who has Bane's serum. Oh, by the way, Bane looks crazy in this. He looks cool when he's skinny, but when he jacks up, he turns red all of a sudden and monstrous and stuff. And so, like, she does prove herself to the point where he lets her join. He gives her a new utility belt. He gives her some gadgets, but we never see these things on her when the next season come around. She's back to her basic utility belt that she made herself. She still has her weird Batarang looking thing. And, you know, so it's kind of like, well, what happened to the continuity of the last one? Well, that's when things started to shift. And in fact, that's when like the chin changed and they brought in Robin. I love this version of Robin. This version of Robin is extremely cool. He is probably, he's second on my favorite next to that, the one from Teen Titans. He's younger than Barbara because Barbara's age is never really said. But then when you get in the fifth season, she's in college already. And so like, but she looks a lot younger than that of a teenager. But anyway, this one's in middle school. His origin is very similar to, you know, how it always is. Mark Hamill and Kevin voices that of his father. Mark Hamill voices Tommy Zuko. And I think it's Tommy Zuko, the dude who killed his parents. And so, like, you know, he gets orphaned in, he becomes Robin, and it makes Batgirl very jealous because she's all like, how dare you get like a new partner and train him, and he gets to see your cave and hang out in the Batmobile, but you wouldn't even let me, like, you know, stand beside you and everything. So eventually, because of this season now, they're getting more traditional into sidekick roles. Batgirl and Robin are constantly hanging out and helping each other out. And towards the end, Batman gets pissed at both of them because he's all like, before you two, I only had to worry about myself, but you two are always getting like either hurt or something like that. And it gets to the point when he doesn't even want them to hang with him no more. But then towards the end of the fourth season, they bring in an alien invasion, which brings in the Justice League in season 5. In the first two seasons, they had like their own makeshift Batmobile. It looked really futuristic and kind of cool in a way. But then in the third season, they went for a more traditional Bruce Timm style. See, fans kept complaining and they kept going back to the well of Bruce Timm. And so the Batmobile changed to where it looked more like the animated series one. The Batwing was weird looking, and so was the Batboat. They had these odd looking designs that just looked so futuristic. It didn't even look like a boat or like a jet. So that was always kind of like an odd thing, but they do look cool and everything. Alfred is more like the Nolan Alfred, where he preaches Batman to death about, like, Bruce Wayne needs to do this and Batman needs to do that less, and you should stop being this, and I'm taking you to the hospital, and blah 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 and blah 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 and stuff like that. It gets very annoying because he does help out, but he preaches way too much, and they can't tell what color they want his hair. Is it gonna be black? Is it gonna be gray? Like, which is it? They also introduced their own police officers. Ethan Bennett he's not really a Harvey, he's more like a Harvey Dent type character, where he's friends with Bruce from like college and stuff, and Bruce is Batman, but he don't know it. And at some point, Bruce is thinking about bringing him into the fold, but tragedy happens. See, Ethan is like, he thinks Batman is doing great for Gotham, and he doesn't want to interfere with that. His boss, on the other hand, Rojas, doesn't like Batman because Batman does what cops do, and he don't like that. He don't like vigilantes. So he's really stern and hard on Ethan and stuff, to the point where Ethan tries to prove himself by stopping Batman and Joker infects him with this putty type stuff. And this putty type stuff turns him into their version of Clayface. But for what's so weird and bizarre, it's just like Two-Face, he turns evil for some reason. Now, Two-Face turns evil because he has split personality since the beginning. Ethan never had that. They just made him fall from grace for no apparent reason. I never appreciated that. It's like the moment he turns into like a metahuman, he turns violent and evil and everything. And then he becomes a crook and he starts stealing money. It's like, what the world, man? Like, this is why I hate when they create diverse characters and then they make them do bad, dumb stuff like this. Then in the second season, he tries to turn into a vigilante, but he's still too much of an angry person. By the fourth season, he appears only on one episode. Cause he only appears in the second season like two episodes, or maybe one, no, two, because he pretending to be Solomon Grundy for some bizarre reason, just so he can steal during like Halloween time. And so he only appears in the fourth season for one episode, so that, he's about to rehabilitate himself. But then the real Clayface from the comics gets introduced, and then he tries to take him down against Batman's wishes. Then he gave a cure to him, but the cure doesn't last. At some point in time in a future episode, one of the coolest episodes ever, it is revealed that he's back human and back on the police force. Ellen Yin is kind of like the what's that Hispanic cop name they created for Batman animated series? Well, she's kind of like her, whatever her name is. I can't think of it right now. But she's very hard and very stern in the first season. And, because she's trying to take Batman down and she hates vigilantes. And she's really hard and she's really stern. But then by the second season, because of what happened to Ethan, she turns around and she starts to befriend Batman, even being his partner of sorts, like a secret partner, only for her to get found out by Chief Rojas, the mean, grumpy, like police chief and everything. And there she's stripped of her badge until she helps Batman with the Riddler. And then in comes in the last episode, Commissioner Gordon, to give her back her badge and say that he's changing things up around here. And he brings in the bat signal and everything at the very last episode of the second season. But then something weird happens. By the third season, Yin and Ethan just completely disappear, especially Yin. Ethan, like I said, appears in like one episode, maybe two, and then he appears once in the fourth season. But Yin completely and utterly disappears from the entirety of the series. She is never seen again and is only mentioned once in season 4, the future episode. by Barbara and everything. And it's kind of weird, like what the heck happened to her? It's never been explained why they just completely dropped that character. And of course, in favor, they brought in Commissioner Gordon for the entirety of the third and fourth season. So it's like, why create your own style, your own characters, just to abandon them to bring in more traditional characters? They could have still had her on the show and stuff, and that really bothered the crap out of me. Now, the first season shows Batman, even though he's 3 years in, he acting like it's year one. He's constantly getting his butt kicked by villains, and mostly it's the hench people and stuff. You will literally see him fall to the ground, getting knocked out, and all this other crap. It's very embarrassing to see Batman like that, and it pissed my friend off back in college when he saw that, to the point where he stopped watching the series. And so, like, after a while, they stopped doing that. And like I said, this Batman is more upbeat and everything. We get the origins of a lot of his villains and stuff. Now, by season 2, things start to change a little bit. They start partnering up the villains. Every episode, 2 villains instead of 1. And of course, they bring together the most like iconic ones. They did the whole Batman Returns with Catwoman and Penguin. Then they did Mr. Freeze and Firefly for like one team up episode and stuff. And in a way, it was kind of cool and ambitious and stuff. And of course, they brought in the Riddler in season like 2, and also Hugo Strange, voiced by the original Riddler from the Adam West series. Adam West also appears as Mayor Grange, and like, it was so good to hear his voice and not all silly like sometimes he does in animation. It was like really cool. But then by the 5th season, he left for Mayor Hill. And then the 3rd season, like I said, came around. They brought in Batgirl. The tone and shift just changed so much with the 3rd and 4th and 5th season. Something else. Oh, the future episode. Let me get into that. The future episode was really cool. It was basically The Dark Knight Returns. We have an older Batman who's big and grizzly and old, and he has to stop Mr. Freeze. Robin has become Nightwing, and Barbara is Oracle and paraplegic because of the Joker. And Oracle's voice sounds like the Batgirl's voice, but it's 2 different actresses, and they bring in a different actor for that of Nightwing. And it's a really, really, really cool futuristic episode. Basically, what happens is they go very, 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 very far into the future, and they need to stop Mr. Freeze, who's basically he froze himself. He froze himself to where he'll appear in the future because Batman whooped his butt early on. And so when he wakes up, he freezes all of Gotham. He does that a lot in this series, freezing up Gotham. And so the cops don't know how to stop him. So they go to the Batcave, they find it, and they're trying to figure out who Bruce Wayne was. They assume first he was Robin, then he became Batman, all this other crap. And like they assume Alfred was like, his sidekick or whatever. And so they somehow was able to get the Bat computer up and running, even though it's been down for over 100 years or 1,000 years or so. I think it was 1,000. And so then they started going to flashbacks of what really happened. That's when we get the Dark Knight Returns version of like Batman. And it's like really, really, really cool. The Batmobile is giant. Now in season 5, Batgirl and Commissioner Gordon started to show less and less. They're probably only in about 4 episodes and stuff. I don't know why. I guess it's to bring in all these big name stars that are supposed to play the Justice League. Basically, Martian Manhunter showed up at the end of season 4 with the alien invasion. And then he he created Justice League. We saw the cameos at the end. But then when we get into the 5th season, it seems like Superman doesn't even really know him and stuff. Because this Superman doesn't. They met for the first time. And it's voiced by George Newborn, who was the Superman from Justice League. And this Superman is very, very moody. Way before Henry Cavill took over. This Superman is moody, and he is just rude and mean and stuff. And it's very odd to see a Superman like that. That was the first time I ever saw like a mean Superman. And then we get to see the Flash. We get to see Green Arrow. We get to see Hawkman, and they constantly, tag along with Batman to save the day for whatever's going on, and they get to take on their primary villain. It was a weird shift to go from Batman type stories to now Justice League type story, or better yet, Brave and the Bold type stories. And I guess they was trying to make a spinoff, but it never really worked. But the thing is, the fifth season, while good and everything, I prefer they just never went that direction, because it started becoming less and less a Batman show. In fact, his villains were forced into some episodes just so they can wedge them in and everything. We barely saw the Joker, the Penguin. The Penguin was in the Green Lantern episode where he takes like the ring, and it's just weird and bizarre. Why would the ring go to him and and stuff like that when he's a villain? So this is when, you can kind of tell things were kind of winding down and people were starting to be kind of uninterested. And after that, it was canceled. But then here's the crazy thing. They went back to the alien invasion storyline again for the finale of season 5. The same aliens from season 4. They came back and everything. And they took the powers of the Justice League. And then what made it so weird, in order to defeat them, you had to bust their chest open. And then the Justice League got their powers back. It was a lazy way of like doing it and stuff. And not only that, but Hugo Strange aligned himself with it. Because it's so weird. Hugo Strange is just a psychiatrist. He doesn't know anything about alien tech. When he found the alien ship that crash landed, he somehow rewired their technology to speak with them. He don't know how to do that. Some people in this show are way smarter than they need to be. And that's one of the problems I have with, like, say, Batman in general. This Batman is too smart. Way too smart. He's able to figure things out within seconds. And just like every other Batman, he has a gadget for everything. His gadgets are more high-tech in this, and I do like that. His vehicles are very high-tech. Now, one of the great things about this series was the action. They doubled down on the greatness of the action, way better than the Bruce Timm stuff. And in fact, when they went to these new animation people, this is when the DC animated movies started to resemble that of the Batman in terms of action and, like, style and stuff. And it was even to the point where a lot of people who directed episodes of the Batman directed episodes of the animated movies, and then later created their own stuff like Young Justice. That's how that dude got his start, was from, like, the Batman and stuff. And there are other Bat family characters in this show. So Rino Romano, he voices Batman in this, and he has a much younger voice. He was also the voice of Spider-Man in Spider-Man Unlimited. And so, like, he does a great job playing both Bruce Wayne and Batman, because he changes up his voice just so slightly and everything. And so, like, this movie got one direct-to-DVD movie, but it was a cool movie, but it was just a bizarre villain. The main villain is Dracula. I don't know why they went that supernatural route, because it was just kind of odd and bizarre. Now, yes, Joker and Penguin are in there. Penguin becomes brainwashed by Dracula, and no. It's Joker who becomes brainwashed, and it's Joker becomes brainwashed because he gets bit, and Penguin just becomes a lackey and everything. But kind of like, under hypnosis and stuff. It was a weird angle to take with that. I don't know why they did that type of movie for it. But it never got another direct movie, even though they wanted to do Batman Hush. But, like, with all the creative differences they kept making with, like, this show, it was eventually, like I said before, canceled and stuff. They made a video game, they made a comic book, but fans were getting kind of tired of this series because nothing ever stayed consistent with the show. And if it doesn't stay consistent, then you start to lose the target audience that loves it from, like, the beginning. Because, I'm sure there are fans who enjoyed the first 2 seasons for the unique style and take that they took. But, like, Then things just radically changed by the third and fourth and then the fifth. And like I said before, the show, even though it's a good show, it's not perfect. Like I said before, they value style and action over substance and story. Because like a lot of the villains are just basic. They just steal money and everything, or jewels. Joker is the most bizarre one of all. Like, he creates such weird stuff. Like, he somehow creates this weird gun that turns people into giant playing cards. How in the world is that possible? I have no idea. The ventriloquist and dummy episode was very lame, to the point where they only appeared in like only 1 or 2 episodes. And so like it was so weird, because it's your traditional ventriloquist. He has goons, but then the dummy, he wanted them to make a giant dummy mech robot so that he can put the ventriloquist on the hand of the giant robot thing. Why? It made no sense. Catwoman was not as intriguing as she was in Batman the Animated Series. She's supposed to be one of Batman's equals. She's like on his same playing field. Here, she's just a generic thief, Mr. Freeze. No tragic backstory, just a generic like thief who got frozen and stuff. And I do like what they did with the Riddler. They gave him daddy issues, but then later on, they decided to give his origin. He just appeared in the second season, just appearing for like no reason and stuff. Just to make a bunch of rhymes and riddles and stuff up. And that's the problem with a lot of the villains. Their villains have no real substance to them. They have no motivation other than just wanting money. What Bruce Timm did in his series was very smart. He gave them tragic backstories that made the audience feel for them and made the drama more exciting. And I don't know why they did that. I remember I used to own season 1, 3, and 4. I still have 4, but I got rid of 1 and 3. And the reason for that is because after I was done with college and before streaming took over, I used to watch DVDs every night. And so I was bored. I'm like, okay, I want to watch something with Batman in it. So I'm like, oh, I'll watch the newer Batman. But I couldn't figure out which episode I wanted to watch, because none could hold my attention span, because none of the stories were unique and interesting enough like Batman the Animated Series. But I didn't feel like watching Batman the Animated Series because of how outdated it was, and I wanted to watch something new. And so I realized something. Why do I even have these DVDs? And maybe this series isn't as good as I initially thought. And then it started to wear off me. Like I said before, it's a good series, but it's not a great series. It's nothing like Batman the Animated Series, Batman Beyond, Justice League, or Justice League the Animated Series, Static Shock, or even Superman. It's just a generic action-packed kids show and everything. And with great action and a great artistic style, this show needed much, much more depth than that. I believe if fans and studio interference didn't get in the way, I think later on they really could have explored the Batman mythos a whole lot more. But instead, they went into that of like a Justice League route, and it didn't pay off because the show eventually got canceled and stuff. There were no more direct-to-DVDs. Eventually, the comic book stopped. There were no more games made after that one. And it's just people got tired of that, because at some point later, Brave and the Bold came out, and people really dig that old school art style and stuff, and that old school storytelling. And, around that time also, the Justice League show was ending, Titans ended, and by season 4, that's why they brought in Robin and everything. And it's just like people was kind of getting tired and stuff. And then the animated movies started to come out, and people was really digging those. So why go to a show that's basic with a cool artistic style and action when you can have more complex stories with the animated movies? Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.